right now. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in the world at the moment, even at national and political levels, about growth and how to unlock opportunity. As we've, I'm sure, all read about extensively in the last week or two, the new government has, well, I suppose it depends what your ideological bent as to whether or not you think it's brave or incredibly foolhardy, but they've obviously looked to unlock, quoting them or paraphrasing them, Britain's opportunity and growth potential. Clearly, the jury is somewhat out on that today. But you know, how do you realise growth opportunity without betting the farm? Now, you'd be pleased to know that you've not stumbled into an episode of Newsnight Live here. We're not going to have that geopolitical discussion today. The conversation is going to be a little bit more local and relevant. And as laid out by Adele, essentially what we're here to do today, and in small part on this session that you're just about to enjoy now, is have a look at how British brands can navigate the current tumult and drive forward to achieve sustainable and meaningful growth. Now, in this session, we're going to dissect some of the things that Adele's just talked about, how to use price, innovation, and influence to realise some of those opportunities. Now, as already pointed out, as you can see behind us, I've got two brands from the top 75 at the forefront of their brand's growth efforts. So welcome Jeremy from Fever-Tree and Gemma from Cadbury. Now, I would like to hear from you guys as well, so I will be calling upon you in the time that we have. If you've got any conversations, if you want to join the discussion, if you want to disagree or offer your own perspective on growth and some of the things that we get into today. So please do stick your hand up and I'll come to you throughout. Now, we heard in the presentation the importance of pricing power, particularly right now. Jeremy, in with a bullet at number 58. Congratulations on your appearance in the top 75. Pricing has always been really integral from the beginning to the success of Fever-Tree. Talk to me how you use pricing in the early days and how you continue to use it in regards to brand equity.
Sure, with pleasure. Pricing, so Fever-Tree is, and always has been, at least about 100 to 150% premium to its competition, which is quite unusual if you've worked on brands, for a large-scale brand even now. But the thing was, the truth was, it was never a choice. It was a reality from day one, because the way Fever-Tree came into existence was the two founders recognizing that whilst people wanted more premium gins at that time, they were drowning it with a pretty poor quality tonic. And the reason for that was Schweppes had made the decision a few years previously to remove sugar and use saccharin because it's 7 times cheaper, which is understandable if you're thinking about cost engineering, but it made a really inferior product. But the problem with that is if we wanted to make something that had only natural ingredients and we wanted to make it sustainable, we were going to have to charge double. So the starting point, which is interesting from Adele's speeches, our starting point was, how do you make a product so good that people are willing to pay double for it? And it starts with the product. So just an example, quinine is what's in tonic. Quinine comes from the cinchona tree, which is also known as the fever tree. And the cinchona tree, our founders went back into the British Library to discover from Victorian times the very best cinchona tree. And it existed called the legendaria, but it only existed originally in Peru, but went extinct, and the only one plantation was in the Congo. So we went to the Congo, tasted it, it was phenomenal, but it meant you were starting a startup with your supply chain from the most war-torn area in the world at that time. So it's being, not compromising. The same was on flavors. Most of the flavor houses were like media houses, where you get different quality flavors from around the world, and you blend them together to give quality. No one insisted that the best flavors, that you'd go and meet the farmers and have provenance from that. So we always would challenge the existence in order to do quality. So it's product out, and that still exists now. So everything we do, we're always looking at how can you justify being at least double better in the experience, but through the product or the product experience, rather than necessarily advertising. It's not that we don't think advertising, but we just don't believe that advertising justifies that level of quality difference. You have to touch it, it's tangibility. You have to experience it. And so we don't let any product leave our building if we're not confident that 95% of people could taste it, being blind taste it, would say that is phenomenally better than anything else out there.
So emphasising, well, I suppose all 4 Ps there, as well as promotion, product, and the P for price that we're talking about here. You talked about compromise there. Presumably in the current environment, there is some pressure perhaps, or you must feel the pressure to compromise on price. I mean, why is it important for you to resist that?
Yeah, there's definitely pressured environment, and as you can see, that our margins have definitely been hit by global shipping costs and cost of goods. We've consciously, not increased our price. In fact, we've increased our price like 7% in the UK, but our cost of goods have been up 25%. But we're looking at the long term. We see that we don't want to become niche. We need to balance making sure that we can always justify the price. But we look at other ways to find efficiencies and constantly looking at how we source, how we produce, where we produce, how we find the ingredients, how we work with partnerships to constantly look for efficiencies. The one other thing I would add just on pricing power, which I think sometimes gets overlooked, and I think it's because of the confusion between consumer and customer. We don't do direct to customer, so it's through retailers or pubs. And one of the key things to Fever-Tree's success was making and designing a product that those customers would make more money from than competition, not just gin and tonic, not just tonic competition. So pubs were stuck at only selling beer at £5 or wine at £5. Suddenly, with gin and tonics and the likes of Hendrick's and premium gins and ourselves, and the experience, they were able to sell at £7.50. So suddenly they were advocating our product. The same with the retailer. So I would urge you, if you look at pricing power, you don't just need to design it and your product in a way that the consumers get great value from the experience, but how do your advocates and your customers, how can it be for them to want to not just list you, but want to drive you ahead of the others in the category?
I think it's a really important message. I suspect will resonate with lots of people, certainly in consumer goods. That sure. Dual challenge of B2B and B2C marketing, which I think could be a session in itself. But if you've got any questions particularly about that, as I say, please do take the opportunity that will be afforded to you today. Now, Gemma, to you, at number 13, the dizzying heights of number 13. Pricing doesn't work, or at least you're not in the same position to stretch the price in the category that Cadbury, or the categories that Cadbury operates in. So what does pricing power mean for you?
So for us, you're absolutely right. We're not trying to command a price premium in the market. That's never been the strategy for Cadbury. It's always been about offering quality and value for consumers. And that's where we started nearly 200 years ago, being able to offer a really good quality product at an accessible price point to the vast majority of people. And that in turn has led to us being able to have a really scalable business that allows us to invest in manufacturing efficiencies, that allows us to keep improving the quality of the product, which it ends up in the virtuous circle. So for us, it's certainly been about the combination of quality and value. The value that then generates allows us to keep investing in the business and keep driving it forward in the things that we know are important to consumers.
And one for either of you, really. I think, personal observation, pricing has become almost the forgotten P in the tactical lever armoury that marketers have. Right now, though, as we've discussed and heard already this morning, it's probably the most important tactical lever. So, and it's been wrestled away. I've seen it all the time in my time at Marketing Week. It's been wrestled away from many marketers. Various other divisions and functions seem to have more control over it. So why is it important, and particularly right now, in terms of driving that equity, for marketers to have control over, take back control of P for pricing. Jeremy, I'm looking at you.
Russell,
I'm going to start with you.
Well, no, legally you can't control pricing, so be careful. You can't. It's not your brand can't control pricing.
Okay, let me
just be really careful on that, because
straight into competition concerns.
Yeah,
but in setting pricing.
Well, you can. The only brand you can control is the price you sell
Right.
To the customers. They can then choose to do what they wish with it, up or down. Look, I think. Look, why is pricing? Pricing is a real skill. I always got told the skill of a great marketeer would always be the ability to win market share. That's the most acid. Deliver your plan, because your role is to serve the business and the shareholder. And then 3 is to take price ahead of inflation. And that's the sign, because only brands can only do that sustainably if they've got the equity to do that. So, it is the most important, that lever of knowing how to take price above inflation is a testimony to how strong you build the brand. And why is it so great? Because it goes great to the bottom line. It's the only lever that goes great to the bottom line. So if and it's about extolling the value. Now, get it wrong and you will see it. I think people can be braver on price. The difficulty in the current situation is that the inflation's being forced upon from a supply situation rather than a demand situation, and it's all inflating. So I actually prefer to be brave on price. We've been brave on price, and I used to be working on Guinness. Guinness put 5% price increase every year when inflation was at 1 or 2%. I like being brave on price when, in fact, inflation is low and the world is low, because that's how you differentiate and really signal to the market your quality. I think the current situation is harder because consumers aren't able to judge whether that price is because of your quality or because it's just all boats are flying. So I would say be careful on price right now. Make sure your thing is different. Make sure your thing is better. And then you can be confident in going with what's happening, which is a market price, rather than trying to accelerate it. Because, you've got to remember where you want to be in the right position when it comes down. So, if you just race for profit now, people won't forget that as well. Your customers will not forget that if you just go. So personally, I would be smart about your price. You've got to take it now, invest in being different, invest in being better, and then go harder on price when actually we're kind of over this hump of
it's
market.
difficult because, the work really should have been done many years ago in terms of being different and meaning, because that will then give you flexibility or at least afford you the right to maintain or even increase prices to protect those margins in the long term. We heard a lot about innovation in Adele's presentation and how important that was in terms of product innovation, but also innovating in regards to the experience. Jeremy, talk to me about the adjacent categories and your approach to them that you've moved into. We're always looking, but we don't always feel like it's adjacencies, but we're always looking at innovation, as Adele said. That is the heart blood of our business. It's the most fun. It's actually quite easy. I know that doesn't sound arrogant, but it's easy because we're really clear on our mission. Our mission is make drinks taste better. It's not really it's not a super brainy one, but our positioning also helps guide us. Our positioning is really clear on, which is we're adult focused, and it's all about the best tasting drinks premium drinks that nature has to offer. So basically, we're just constantly looking at where does that then fit? Where do we think we can make adult premium drinks taste better? And we just chat with friends and bar staff and customers, and you see things like in America, tequila's booming. The tequilas are served, 2 biggest serves are the Paloma with grapefruit juice and ranch water, which is like lime soda. And we saw that most grapefruit sodas are pretty rubbishy, so we brought out a brilliant pink grapefruit soda, and it's absolutely flying off the rocks. And most limes are just lime squeeze, so we bring out lime soda with yuzu, and
it flies. And so you just look for these areas. The same, the UK, we're just about to do our biggest adjacency, is just launching premium soft drinks for adults. And that came from COVID, because we just gave loads of products to our friends and families, and they kept saying how much they were drinking as soft drinks, and we kept saying why, and they said, well, it really hits a different gap. You either get soft drinks that are super sweet and rich in flavour, or they're like flavoured water, and that's because they're designed for a 13-year-old palate. But our products are designed for a 30-year-old palate, and so they kind of hit this spot in between, which are like flavourful but not too sweet, and we're low in calories, but we don't use artificial sweeteners, and we don't use stevia, which has that awful aftertaste. So, so it becomes quite apparent once you're clear on your mission and your positioning, and then you just kind of look around and sort of just do, and we always just make stuff, our friends like. I mean, that is that's how our brand was built. Charles and Tim just made tonic water that their friends like. We just make drinks. We do market research for blind spotting, but our start-off innovation is all through what we make for ourselves and our friends, and what bar staff and customers want.
I think the whole notion of customer centricity has been challenged here this morning with that. And also, I mean, one of the things that really stuck out to me was Sarah Benison's quote that Adele had up, which, again, customer centricity, if you do everything that your customers want, then you're going to get the same thing as everybody else. So there is, and if I could come to you on this, Gemma, there is a balance to be struck here between being different and being the same, though, because you need to offer and satisfy needs, but you also need to stand out and be different and meaningful. So how do you approach that at Cadbury? You innovate a lot in terms of product, but how do you balance that same but different?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we do innovate a lot. It's a core part of what drives our equity. It's what we're known for. It's what consumers expect from us, and hopefully really enjoy from us. Adele eating all the caramel. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's a very key part of our strategy. But in terms of making sure that it's still Cadbury, there are kind of three key questions that we ask, like what about it delivers a superior chocolate experience that we know would kind of live up to the Cadbury name, so making sure we're kind of clear on the proposition. Secondly, how do we make sure it definitely tastes of Cadbury? And that's for the chocolate itself, which is more obvious to control in terms of the chocolate mass and what goes into it and the microns that are in it, etc., etc. But also on more adjacent categories to chocolate, like biscuits or ice cream or chilled desserts, making sure that the overall product tastes of Cadbury and that there's the true taste of the brand in there. And then finally, we really leverage our distinctive assets. So on Cadbury Dairy Milk, that's the glass and a half, which has been with us for pretty much since the inception of Cadbury. And also the purple, obviously, the logo that's very well known in the UK. So making sure that we're really leveraging all of those to make sure that it's recognisably Cadbury are all things that we look to when developing something new to make sure that it's come from us. And the acid test question is, would the Cadbury brothers be proud of this product on the shelf? So that's something we always ask ourselves before we launch.
Just on that point about distinctive assets, I mean, it drives me crazy when I look across the brand landscape and think see how many people are not actually leveraging their strengths, and whether or not you go all in on Byron Sharp's view of the world or not. I think most research would point to the importance of distinctive assets. So, I mean, when you're looking at a piece of work or a new product or whatever it is, I mean, what steps are you taking to make sure that those distinctive assets are there, prominent, and will actually resonate?
Yeah. So I guess we look at where we're trying to design this product for where it fits in our portfolio architecture, because it is a challenge with a portfolio so broad as Cadbury and is in so many categories as Cadbury is. But we're very clear on whether it's purple core, as we call it, so whether it's something that really needs to come from the pure essence of Cadbury, and whether the innovation is more of a kind of format or flavour or variant of it, in which case then that would use a lot of the core brand assets to make sure that it's distinctly and obviously Cadbury. for something that's a purple brand, where we are leveraging the Cadbury name, but it's got its own distinct positioning and personality, then we would use potentially, we'd still leverage purple, but we wouldn't necessarily use it to the same extent, and we'd certainly use the Cadbury name. But we also wouldn't necessarily be using the glass and a half if that's not what's in the recipe itself. And then finally, on our endorsed brands, so things like Bourneville, which sit further away from the core, then it's using the name of Cadbury. That's what those brands are borrowing, but it's not designed to be reinforcing the core, so you wouldn't use the same level of purple in those kind of designs. So it's a clear brand architecture that allows us to make sure we're using the right brand distinctive assets in the right way.
I mean, it's so fundamental, but unbelievable how many times that people just look the other way and pursue something new and shiny and forget what actually...
Yeah, it's always a debate with a new product like Caramilk. Is it a brand in its own right, or is it a Cadbury product that has a distinctive name to allow consumers to differentiate? And that's something that we've spent a lot of time recently in being more strict on, to make sure that we're really leveraging and supporting and benefiting from the core of Cadbury, not just proliferating with a whole series of brands that then become much more expensive to support over time.
Russell, just to pick up your piece about different and the same. I mean, for what it's worth, the advice that we've learned is make the what relevant, which I guess is closer to the same, make your how different. So again, like the soft drinks, there are a lot of adult soft drinks that have these weird flavours of strawberry and basil, or things that you kind of, because they pose a risk because people, I don't know if I'm going to like that. Our view is you take flavours that people like, but you execute them in a way that is far different and better. So people like ginger beer, but we'll go and find 3 types of gingers. We'll find a fresh green ginger from the Ivory Coast that just tastes unlike anything else. So I think my advice, for what it's worth, and our experience is make your what relevant stroke similar, make your how very, very different and better.
There's another one for a T-shirt. We're getting some gold here. Thank you very much. I am going to come to you guys. Maybe you can help Gemma answer the question on Karamak in a little while. But to Adele's final point, stroke rallying call, make the case, be bold. I think sometimes, forgive me, Adele, in advance, the word boldness or being bold and being brave is slightly overused in a branding and marketing context, particularly, I suppose, if you're in a category that's particularly challenged right now, certainly hospitality, etc. Money's flying out of the door because of cost of doing business. But so that their challenge is a lot more difficult when you're going to your board, your CFO, to make the case for further investment. In consumer goods, perhaps slightly different, slightly more established. So generally, taking a step back for the benefit of everybody here, I'll come to both of you. I mean, how do you make that case? What language do you use when you are making the case for branding? Because we all understand it's there. There's plenty of studies out there to know that this is what's necessary to drive through economic difficulties. But how do you actually do it when costs are so under pressure? I'm going to come to you first, Jeremy, if I could.
Look, I mean, it's definitely, I'd say, one of the hardest things as a marketer in general for that. But I mean, at Fever-Tree, we're quite fortunate that we're a growth stock. So we know the role we play in people's portfolio is about driving growth. And so our CFO and CEOs, it's never been a question about the investment. We're very efficient. Our focus is on how you stay efficient and lean, and we look at other ways to combat that cost increase. So we're a £350 million business, but we're only 300 million people. Sorry, 300 million. It's only 300 people. 300 million would be nice, but only 300 people. So even the receptionist is a 1.5 million revenue person. Yeah. So that's how we view. So, and we've always been lean because we believe that leanness leads to choicefulness, and choicefulness needs to focus on the best decisions. So, from day one, we've always been lean. We never keep debt. So we allow ourselves to be cash to be able to make decisions and be able to be responsive. So we're in a different situation. The focus for us is not do we keep investing or do we keep innovating. It's about making the right choices, about looking for efficiencies in manufacturing and sourcing and partnering, and how we and just how we constantly make sure that the choices we make have the best returns. And we're very much product out. So we always start product, channel with customer experience and only go to comms last. Not because we think comms don't have a role, but the way that our product set up is all about product differentiation. And so we go back to making sure we don't stray from the things that we know are proven and work.
Okay. And Gemma, if I could just get your thought on this. I mean, Cadbury, very different business, very more promotion focused perhaps than Fever-Tree is. But so it's budgeting time. Everybody will be having that difficult conversation with their finance partner, as I think we probably call them now, in the next few weeks. I mean, how should effectiveness, how should investment be framed? I mean, what have you found over the years works and doesn't when you're talking to a finance person?
Just to kind of build on what you're saying, for us, it's a brand-led organisation. So, whilst finance obviously always do want to challenge us on our levels of investment, it is a company that puts brands first, and so we're not necessarily having to really fight for investment in the same way that some industries might be at the moment. But I think making sure that what we are investing in is proven to return over time. So that would be obviously using ROI, short term and long term. But also I think for us, what we've seen really step change our performance in the last few years is a focus on the really clear brand idea that we have now for Cadbury around generosity. And that's something that, it's been a step change in positioning. We were centred around joy, but we've moved to generosity. It's much more in keeping with the kind of where our company started in terms of the values of the product, with a glass and a half that's a generous portion of milk in each product. But also then leads us to the bigger brand idea about there's a glass and a half in everyone, and that opportunity to really reiterate and establish that brand positioning in people's minds has step changed our performance, and is something then that the business can see is worth investing in on a long period of time. So I think when the conversations are focused on how you justify the investment and what you justify in, I think it's focusing on the core business and what's really going to drive growth over the long term, as opposed to the short, more tempting tactical opportunities that might be there. But that's the focus that we have.
Sounds dangerously like common sense. Be careful. I mean, if I'm clear, it's the work out the what and the why, and then pitch for the how.
Yeah.
I mean, Russell, one other thing, again, I don't know about Cadbury's, it's obviously a huge board, but our board, we always start with a 3-year conversation. Every meeting, everything is all about where we're going to be in 3 years, all the business plans, how we're going to get to the 3 years, and then we come to the short term. So we work back, and if you stay in the 3-year and being really clear that what's going to 3 year, then when you come into the year now, what's happening and some of the decisions you make now have to be quite tactical and quite important, but you need to make sure it's not risking the 3 year. Because if you do it the other way, you just get stuck in the short term. Yes, and yes, you might still make some of the same decisions, but you might be sacrificing, and then we will get it will turn around. Whether it's 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, but you want to make sure that you are well positioned, winning share, and therefore you're well positioned when you come out.
Simple, right? I mean, this is really interesting. We could probably stray into another session entirely, but the job of planning and strategy has to be so much more flexible. I mean, it fries my brain when I think about this sort of major seismic events that just keep coming, one after another after another. I mean, how the hell? I'm glad I'm just a simple journalist. Anyway, that's your opportunity now. If anybody does have a question about anything that they've heard or anything that they've not heard me ask today, then please do put your hand up now. Here's your opportunity. We've got some mics, or you could just shout really loudly. There's a gentleman there. Do you want to just kick us off? I think we can hear you.
So it's really great to hear you both talk about the product first and everything. It's very inspiring. And Gemma, my question for you particularly is a 200-year history with the brand. You're not the only person to have your job, plenty of people before you. How have you and your business maintained consistency without, it's probably one of the most consistent brands since I've been alive. How do you fight that fight internally with very young, excited people, very insightful, excited people?
All people can be excited too. You wouldn't think it from looking at me.
You've shaved now, so you look younger.
I mean, I guess one of the benefits of being around this long, and I'm pleased they haven't been with the company for all that time, is that we have distilled over time what works. So we literally have a book about our history, Purple Rain, that everybody has to read when they start in the job. Purple Rain, yeah.
It's a soundtrack available
Absolutely.
from Prince.
Yeah, we haven't managed to IP that. So that gives us kind of very clear guidance and ensures that where we're going in the future is in keeping with where we've been as a brand in the past. But I guess there's always a job to keep refreshing and refining your kind of brand values and what you stand for, and that's something that, with the help of our agencies, we make sure is well documented and well shared with the organisation to use as a framework to assess both the innovation but also the activation, that it's in keeping with what we're trying to achieve and what we stand for as a brand. And it doesn't... It's broad enough, I guess, that it allows us to have ideas that range from how we work from supporting charity partners with Age UK and the Prince's Trust through to doing mystery bars. It doesn't constrain us, but it does help make sure that we're not doing things that are outside of what we're here to achieve as a brand.
Having that anchor and sense of self particularly important, I imagine, when you've been through the ownership changes that Cadbury has in particular. Yeah. Any more questions?
Hi, good morning. I'm Leticia from Drinkworks, and I'd like to ask a question to Jeremy. So I think we're quite spoiled for choice in the UK with premium mixers. So congratulations, Jeremy, on your number 58 spot. Having said that, what do you think you're doing that's so successfully positioning your brand in the consumers' minds to make them choose your brand over London Essence, Double Dutch, Franklin & Sons, Sackford, and the sea of premium mixers that they could choose otherwise?
Well, I guess first and foremost, we were first. We've been around since 2005. The market, we were a low-tech disruptor. The world, for those who are old enough, it was Schweppes and own label, and there wasn't such thing as a premium mixer. And that was the insight of the fact that your 3/4 of the drink is the mixer. It needs to be worthy of the spirit. So I think by being first, we disrupted, and really, and that is true for those who are around. But I guess the lengths we go to, as I sort of described, and then I could bore you for longer on what we do, on how we make products, and the way, the quality that we go to is unparalleled. Those other products are often either still part of big corporations, and I don't know many CEOs who are in the field meeting producers. Normally, it's procurement who are buying on an open market flavourings. We go and meet the producers. Our CEO knows the key producer families, and that quality control for both taste and sustainability. We're the only one that's carbon neutral of soft drinks and mixers at the moment, though I think actually Double Dutch now have followed as well. But so I think it's just, we always just keep raising the bar on quality, and we're obsessed. I mean, if you get into our place, you're obsessed with making the best tasting drinks.
Be best, be restless. That's again, more t-shirts there. I think we've got time for one more question. So does anybody want that honour? Over here, right here at the front. If you just want to shout, I think we can probably hear you. Well, shout loud so everybody can hear you. Thanks.
I've got a very soft voice, so thank you for the brilliant conversation. So this is a question about sustainability. You've spoken about natural ingredients, relationship with farmers in the supply chain, carbon neutrality, ethical brand legacy. I'd love to just hear a bit more about the role of sustainability in your decision making and how that's changed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, for us, ethical sourcing has become more and more important, more part of the brand and company DNA, I guess. And for us, that is particularly highlighted through our Cocoa Life programme. So how we source the cocoa from specific farms, and also from making sure then that it's paid for in a fair value way for the farmers. It's empowering communities, it's ensuring education, etc., etc. So it's certainly something that it started 10 years ago, so it's not new for us, but it's been something that we have been talking about more to consumers to make sure they're aware of our sourcing principles. And now there's more of a focus on packaging. So now for us, as well as maintaining our ethical sourcing principles, it's about how we make sure that the delivery of the product to the consumer is in packaging that is fit for purpose. So whether that's taking virgin plastic out of the supply chain, increasing recyclability, using less packaging per se, that's a huge focus for us at the moment.
I mean, for us, it's a bit of a weird one initially, because we were doing lots of sustainability things when we didn't realise they were doing it for sustainable reasons, just for quality reasons. So we said it had to be natural ingredients, nothing artificial. We hated plastic and the quality it has, both in taste and experience, but clearly also what it was doing for the oceans. We went for small producers because they made better products, and nature is at the heart of what we do. So, and we distill our extracts close to the field, if I'm honest, because it's fresher, but obviously it has the advantage of not having the travel. So initially it was all through quality and recognising that nature makes things taste better. Obviously we become more aware over the last 15 years of the responsibility, and now we look at, I guess, more consciously, like onshoring production, so we don't have to export as far. And our glass is the maximum recyclable glass that's possible, and in those areas. So I think initially it was innate to making the better quality through nature and produce what is now sustainable. Now it's a more conscious responsibility. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Just to add a supplementary question to that, do you do it because it's the right thing to do, to be a good corporate citizen, or are you doing it for commercial uplift, commercial benefit?
That's what I was trying to say. So initially, it was done because we believe that makes a better tasting product. So we hated artificiality 15 years ago because it tasted rank, and still does. And nature, man-made things are great at many things, just not food and drink. Nature knows best. So, one of our opening lines was, "Why mess with nature when you can mix with it?" So, nature's always been at the heart from a commercial sense of making the best products. We always, again, wanted to go to smaller local farmers because they make better quality, and we wanted to do things without plastic because it's better quality. Now, that doesn't mean we don't. We're very conscious, and as we've learned more about climate change. This was 2003 we started, as we learnt more about climate change. So now it's more of a corporate responsibility. We recognise our responsibility, and as we've got bigger, we recognise that responsibility to extend beyond just better tasting to other areas of our touch points.
I mean, it does sound like a cop-out, but it is both, because if you don't do the right thing, you don't have a long-term business model. If we don't source our cocoa in a responsible and sustainable way, we won't have a product. So for us, it really is, it is both the right thing to do, and we have to do it. Otherwise, we don't have a business.
It's not a cop-out at all. I mean, I think you can do both. It always depends, doesn't it? You don't have to be binary in your motivation. Thank you for that. I think we'll finish on the almost existential the bon mot that Jeremy just delivered, that nature does know best. So please take that away if you don't take anything else. But I'm sure you will take a lot, because that was a fantastic discussion. Thanks to Jeremy, thanks to Gemma, and thanks to you for your questions.